And that would be answered when and if we detected an explosion of an atomic bomb over in Russia. The idea of MOGL was that there's a layer of air at about 35,000 feet that carries sound waves, believe it or not, and carries them for a very long distance. So the MOGL was designed to haul a microphone up there with a little radio transmitter, and it would sit up there in that 35,000-foot layer and listen. And somebody on the ground literally would be at a radio receiver. And if they heard a great big boom, I guess it is, I'm not sure, they would say, that's it, folks. Consequently, Project MOGL, because of the extremely sensitive issue that it was meant to give us information about, had a top priority. It had the same priority as the development of the hydrogen bomb. And it had a top security classification. This is something the skeptics right away misinterpret. We're going to get into this in more detail, but the mission of MOGL was top secret. The equipment they used was off the shelf. You could have gotten the same stuff. And it was just standard balloons, bunch of them, standard rope that hooked it all together, standard ballast system, and so on and so forth. And down at the end of most of these MOGLs, they had 3 radar reflectors. So we're going to have to look at all that stuff. Here's another picture of a MOGL, comparing the length of it, which was huge, this configuration, 600 feet. That's higher than the Washington Monument, as you see in this picture, and about 2/3 of the height of the Eiffel Tower, for goodness sake. So in a sense, they were huge, but there was nothing to them. It was just a huge collection of balloons and so forth. Now, the Air Force gives us their answer, and their answer is, without the Air Force putting it this way exactly, that a series of dopes found one of these things on the ground, got all wrapped around the axle and thought it was a spaceship somehow. And when they found out it was a MOGL balloon, they said, oh my God, it's super top secret. We've got to hide this. There's probably 50 or 60 people who've seen it and so on, and the Russians might find out about it. That's the basic theory behind the MOGL. Furthermore, it was the position of the Air Force in this vast document that really any sensible person could look at the testimony of the Roswell witnesses, compare that testimony with what a MOGL looks like, and that they're obviously equal. Let me read this to you right out of this, just a little bit. And it says, had the researchers, meaning the UFO researchers, completed even a cursory comparison, they would have found that the materials were suspiciously similar. In other words, what the witnesses reported versus what's in a MOGL. Detailed examination would have shown them to be one and the same. Okay, folks, that's their position. That's the challenge we have. And what we're going to do in the rest of this is really look at what the witnesses, or just several of the witnesses, key witnesses, because we don't have the 10 or 20 hours it would take to go through all of the witnesses. We're going to look at them and we're going to compare what we know about a MOGL. It's not hard to find out a lot about the MOGL because this document, the Roswell report, only about 30 pages of this deals with the Roswell incident. It's incredible how your tax money has been wasted. The rest of this, and there's nearly 1,000 pages, I'm told, a friend of mine counted them, it's not even paginated. They didn't even put page numbers in the darn thing. But the rest of it, the 97%, is pure padding. What you would get in terrible trouble with your high school English teacher if she wanted a 5-page essay and you wrote 1 page and padded the rest of it. Let me show you what the remaining 97% is. It's stuff like this. These are formulas from physics about what makes a balloon rise or fall. This is all the engineering data from this and other balloon projects. Got nothing at all to do with the Roswell incident. It's just absolutely shameless. But there it is. And incidentally, if you want a copy of one of these, it costs you $67. But you're not going to learn too much. Okay?
But we learn a lot about the mogul.
We would. So we can segue into the mogul, I guess.
Sir, do you believe what they actually found on Mac Brazel's ranch was truly a mogul balloon?
Well, if it was just a balloon, I don't think he would have made a 60-mile trip to go see the sheriff.
Thank you.
If I'm to understand you, Project Mogul was indeed a top-secret project, but it did not involve any elaborate equipment, things that you identified as off-the-shelf stuff. So if the people who initially saw the debris at Roswell saw this, couldn't they identify it as common everyday materials?
Absolutely. And that's the heart of this. Go back to that rancher, Mac Brazel. He told people he had found weather balloons before, and this was no weather balloon, he said. Common sense would certainly lead you in the direction that you have just suggested, because these were very ordinary items that the mogul balloon trains, as they called them, or arrays, consisted of. It also works the other way. When you have ordinary people who give extraordinary descriptions of the material, now you know it couldn't be the off-the-shelf stuff, could you? What I'd like to do is to focus on the one item that the Air Force and the skeptics say confused everybody. It's a radar reflector. And here's a picture of one. And actually, I'm going to show you a series of pictures here because it's so important for us to get to the heart of it. As you'll see from this picture, which shows some people around one that's being launched. That's the balloon, that's the reflector beneath it. That reflector is a box kite. It's made out of 1/4-inch balsa wood sticks. And then they've got some fairly heavy paper, like butcher paper, with a metal foil on the other side of it. And that stuff is glued together, and there's some strings, and the whole thing only weighs 3.5 ounces. And it's got this strange configuration because that makes the radar waves reflect off of it and send a real strong signal. And that's why it's built that way. These things are manufactured and put together in a flat way so that you can store a bunch of them in a warehouse, which is exactly what was done then and is still done, as a matter of fact. How on earth somebody could think this is high tech is beyond me, and actually comes to the heart of this. Are you going to believe that, ladies and gentlemen of the jury? Would one of these things send Major Marcel, the staff intelligence officer, into some kind of a fit in which he thinks this is a spaceship, in which he thinks 31 years after the event that he'd never seen anything like it before or since, or that it was not of this earth? That's what the Air Force wants us to believe, okay? So, we're going to look at some other testimony